And hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Momodora Reverie under the Moonlight 80% normal tournament. We've got our first of two matches here in the third bracket round between Dorothy and Nyaki. Seed numbers 6 and 7 of this 16-runner tournament. And yeah, let's see who comes out on top. It's the lower bracket, so this is the last chance. If you go through, if you win, you stay in. If you drop, you're out. We've got Dorothy on the left, Nyaki on the right. And yeah, this tournament has been going on for a while, but it's always good to be back whenever we have another match on. It's such a good speed run of such a good game. If you haven't played this yet, if you're watching this and you haven't played yet, do it. You can pick it up on Steam. I'm pretty sure it's pretty cheap. Well, yeah, to explain the category real quick, we're doing any percent, so beat the game by any means, with the restriction of that you do need to do the requirements to get the true ending. More on that later. And normal refers to the difficulty that the runners are playing on. There's 4 difficulties in this game. There's easy, normal, and hard at the start. Once you beat hard, you unlock insane. Which is the same as hard, except you have 1 health, so you die from any damage, be it a hit or over time. So starting off the movement deck here, as our priestess Kaho that we play as, is rolling and occasionally rolling into the air. So there's a roll button and there's a jump button. If you press both in the same frame, you roll into the air. Nice and simple. By dictionary definition, a frame perfect trick, but it's not as difficult as it sounds when I say it's a frame perfect trick. It's just pressing 2 buttons on the same frame. And yeah, the reason we do roll jumping is because rolling's fast. It's, again, quite simple. Rolling is the fastest move we can do right now. But it's going to get more interesting later on, as we'll unlock some additional abilities. For now, we're in the Sacred Odalia Grove, the starting area of the game. This is a Metroidvania, so there's many different rooms you can go through. And yeah, there's 2 types of attacks you have in this game. You have your maple leaf that you slash people with. When you see people doing a melee attacks with all the red particles. Is it particles? The red, like, visual effects. That's you whacking a maple leaf out and about. And on top of that, there's a ranged attack with the bow, which has some unique mechanics to it. There's levels of charge. If you charge the arrow for a while, you can shoot multiple arrows, but there's a bit more to it than that, because when you start charging the arrow, if you release it before you fully charge it, it still does more damage than a regular arrow. And that's going to be important later on. It actually is going to matter for damage output. But for now, we've just got a basic bow where the fastest way to do damage with the bow is to just spam the basic level of it. Now, unfortunately, Nyaki took a hit and reset. I'll talk about why that's important later, because, yeah, what both runners just did is try to set up for a quick kill on the first boss, Dea. That's the name. You can see it on Nyaki's screen because they are playing in English. And Nyaki just paused. So there's 2 things that happened. So Nyaki got hit, And the reason a reset is necessary is because of the item that Nyaki just picked up, Edea's Pearl. This game rewards you with special items if you do a boss damageless. So Nyaki got hit, had to reset, tried again, and got the quick kill. The pausing is just a buffer strat. Yeah, you can simply call it pause buffering and to line it up. Dorothy did get the attack. The attack with Edea involves baiting Edea into doing an attack that involves putting the pearl in front of her, and that's the weak point. Unfortunately, Dorothy did hit the pearl, but not in the right way. There's a weird finicky thing with the damage calculation on if all 3 arrows hit at the same time. Yeah, there's some weird stuff that happens with the damage, and it causes Edea to die in 1 hit. And as Dorothy didn't get it, the pearl was hit, but not in the right way, so it only did moderate damage, and as a result, Dorothy had to do the fight normally. And yeah, you can see how fast the quick kill is, because Nyaki got hit once, reset, and then did the quick kill, and it was still faster. So if you know how to do the quick kill, it is very fast and worth your time to do it. You can practice it too, because it's like early game. If you mess it up, you just reset if it's PB attempts. But this is a race, so yeah. Now here we have the second boss, Mocha. So something I haven't mentioned yet is the little stars that the players picked up along the way. You can see it in the top left. Dorothy currently has 0 and Nyaki currently has 7. That's money, the currency of this game. And you know, to be quirky and all, it spells it M-U-N-N-Y. You know. So the money that players gather are to buy the crystal seed item when they got to first reached this area that they're currently in, Karst City. The crystal seed is an item that buffs your damage by 50%. So that is a useful item to have. It's the only item we buy in the game. Any other item we acquire, either we pick up because it's like needed to complete the run, or we get damageless boss items. Such as the fight that the runners just did, Mocha and Edea. Mocha is just a bit of a phase 0 to the fight. Just whack Mocha with enough damage to trigger the next part. Then Lubella shows up. And yeah, Lubella is a combination of firing arrows, doing melee hits, and using the crystal seed to your advantage. But what the runners also did was called Konami. With the C. The Konami fairy. Konami is summoned by inputting the directional inputs of the Konami code. And that's the little fairy that shows up and just sends down a bunch of rays that do damage. They appear in random places in the room that you're in, so... Oh, Nyaki going for a tricky roll jump there. Roll jump over the chest. If you mess it up and you don't get the jump and only the roll, you roll into the spikes and die. Spikes instantly kill you in this game. No matter what. The only time you're not dying from spikes is if you have invincibility frames from being hit prior to ending up in the spikes. And that is a cue to very quickly get out of the spikes once those invincibility frames wear off and you're in the spike still. Yeah, the hitbox hits you and you die. So the runners also made a little detour to pick up the garden key. This is going to become important for routing later. Well, yeah, this is Area 3. Now, I mentioned this is a Metroidvania, so there are different ways or you can do the bosses in different order, you can visit areas, but for the purpose of this run, this is the third area we visit, Subterranean Grave. Now, the property of Edea's Pearl that I haven't explained yet, which came into play in the Lubella fight, is it poisons the enemy. The flip side of it is you can poison yourself, and if you take even a single tick of poison damage during the fight, it counts as you taking damage and don't get the fight. Unfortunate death over on Nyaki's side. But that's how this game works. You know, Nyaki got ahead with a quick Oladea, now a death that put Dorothy ahead again. So the big rain of blocks that just came down on Dorothy's screen, that's the Bachman patch. That is the damage item for the Mocha and Lubella fight. It rains down a massive amount of blocks, each of which does its own little damage and has its own little hitbox. Remember that for later. So this is Frida. We like Frida in this community. We're happy about Frida. It's generally not a boss that is really obnoxious. So, you know, we're fond of Frida. We love our we love a little bird boss. So the damageless boss item for Frida is the sparse thread. You emit a ring of damage. Yeah, just a burst ring of damage from yourself. That's what it does. But yeah, the subterranean grave is a very bad place to die in. The checkpoints are pretty few and far between. Now, there's a couple ways you can fight Frida. You can try and man mode it by going up and meleeing, because meleeing does do more damage than the arrow. But that obviously runs the risk of you being right in the enemy's face, and you know they can potentially hit you. You're right in their face, so there's less reaction time. What Nyaki is doing right now is the safe way of doing Frida, which is sit in the corner, duck, and spam arrows. The attack that just came up. Yeah, that's a charge attack, and you have to go up to Frida and hit it 4 times with a melee attack. Now, on top of picking up the sparse thread as the boss item, there's also the crest fragment. This first crest fragment, it speeds up your bow. Yeah, it speeds up your bow attacks. And yeah, this is about the damage output of the arrows that I mentioned earlier. It's not going to come into play quite yet, but there is a place where it will, and I'll make a note of it. Meanwhile, you go to Whiteleaf Memorial Park, do a bit of navigating the rooms, and here we are, Lubella. Throw out Konami again, poison her. Now, this is the only boss fight in the game, aside from the final boss, that we don't have to do damageless. Because the item that you get from this fight damageless is not useful to us. Because what it does, it restores a small amount of health for each enemy you kill, but we don't really fight enemies in this all that much. We generally go past them, so it's really not a useful item. Dorothy, however, did do the boss damage, so yeah, the item's there in the left corner. You can see it right there. So when you beat Lubella the second time, she fakes out killing you and curses you to turn into a cat. This sounds kind of bad because the cat has a bunch of limitations. However, it does run faster. And fortunately, you immediately find an item that allows you to cure the curse that has been put upon you. It's the cat sphere that allows you to transform between cat and human at will. So the cat has a few properties. It's smaller, so it can fit in tight spaces. It runs faster. But there are also limitations to the cat. You can't use any item other than the cat sphere. You can't use your bow. And you can't climb ladders. You'll see it here with Dorothy. Went up on the platform and jumped back instead of using the ladder, because as a cat you can't. There's also this movement tech you can do with the cat, which is roll jump cancels, is what we call it. The cancel part of it is doing an attack to cancel the slowdown in midair. The cat rolling on the cat is worse than the humans, because there's a considerable slowdown at the end of it. But if we roll jump into the air, we can do an attack in midair to cancel the slowdown. To cancel the slowdown from that roll, and yeah, that's what allows us. Because the initial speed of the roll jump, or roll in general, is also faster for the cat. So this is where the movement gets very technical, and where your mastery of it can make or break. Make or break your run. Alright, so here we have the knight. That was the knight. Yeah, this is a mid-boss. It just kind of shows up. There's no health bar or anything. And yeah, 2 sparse thread hits is enough to KO him. Alright, so we'll go. So we're coming back to this area. This is where we dropped through the platform earlier in the run to fight Mocha. So yeah, we're doing a little bit of backtracking here. We're moving on to the second crest fragment, which is a very important one for routing. So back to the Sacred Ordalia Grove, because there's a little mini corridor right here that you can only fit through while being a cat. So now that we have the cat ability, we can go through here, trigger this weird lightning door, and transform the world into Frore Cielo. So yeah, no big fight here, just movement, just room navigation and movement here. Only key thing is making this platform cycle right here. And that's it right there. That's the crash fragment. This crash fragment gives you the ability to warp. Now, there was a detour that the runners took. Of dipping into a room off to the right and then dipping right back. Because in order to be able to warp to an area, you need to have physically been in the room that contains the save bell you warp to. That's how it, like, exactly works. And yeah, so using that, we go back to the Forlorn Monastery, since the runners unlocked that by very briefly dipping into the room that the save bell is in you warp to. And now we're in the Cinder Chambers. The next boss is here, which means another Damson's item. So, a quick menu item here to replace the cat sphere with the Crystal Seed. Crystal Seed is going to be used in this fight, so that's why. Starting off with the Bachman patch. Rain down both of them. Some runners opt to summon the Konami Fairy, some don't. That's generally just player preference. The key thing here is pay attention to the yellow particles you see coming from Kaho here. This is what we call a partial charge or half charge, or some people refer to it as level 2 charge. And yeah, with this faster arrow speed that we got from the relic fragment that was picked up after Frida, the first one, the first relic fragment that was picked up, yeah, the damage output is actually better by waiting for the yellow particles and then do it. And yeah, remember that double-edged sword I mentioned, the flip side of you being able to poison yourself? Yeah, that's just what happened to Dorothy. So Nyaki's been behind for a while, but got right back up. It is true. It is true. It's a rite of passage essentially as a Momo runner to at least once poison yourself with the poison cloud from Medea's arrow. And yeah, unfortunate hit there on Dorothy. Good chance for Nyaki here to take the lead. Now, something that's also player preference is when to use the sparse thread. Some runners, like myself, for example, like to use the crystal seed first and then unload a bunch of arrows, a bunch of half charges. And then once the crystal seed has worn off, then find some kind of space to use the sparse thread. Alright, Dorothy getting close. Getting close to doing this fight. Okay, so there's two key things about ending this fight. You want to be as close to the right of the screen as possible, because that's the direction you want to leave in. And you also want this lovely lady, called Kath, you meet earlier in the game, to be close to you, because yeah, she takes time to run to you before triggering her dialogue. She asks us for help, and we say no because we need to go fast. Then we get the the, what's it called? Okay, so the damages item, let me go over this. The damages item for the arsonist that we just fought is the pocket incensory. This adds a flame property to your attacks. This is where it comes into play, where I mentioned that on the Bachman patch, each of those little patches has their own hitbox and damage, which means each of those tiny little blocks gets amplified by the pocket incensory. So this is Partner Fennel, more or less the only fight that we can accurately manip. You do a bunch of damage to your... generally, 1 arrow and 2 sparse threads will trigger her to roll back, prime her sword. You wait a little bit because she has invincibility frames during it, and then you just completely melt her HP bar with the pocket incensory powered Bachman patch. Like, pay attention to Dorothy's screen here. You get to see it again. Look at this health bar just completely drain out. Partner, I hardly saw her. Anyway, going back, the crest fragment that was picked up after beating Arsonist is the one that gives us the ability to dash in midair, which the runners have been very graciously using. It is an excellent ability. Unfortunate death there on Nyaki's side. I don't know where the save point is. Okay, hit the save point. See, that's also a very important thing in runs like this, like races, no reset runs, marathon settings, is hit the save bells. Do not forget to hit the save bells. Anyway, the final crash fragment is the one you get after beating Fennel. It gives you an additional level of charge you can do with the bow. So the going around beating all the bosses, getting these crash fragments, the purpose of that was to get in here, the Royal Pinacotheca. Which a lot of runners have trouble saying. It's a tricky term. To this day, I'm still not convinced I'm saying it right, but we move. Alright, so this is a very high precious section because of the lack of save points. Like the section of going up, getting the sacred getting the sacred wind, and then coming back down and hitting the save bell again. Yeah, that's one section between save bells. If you die at any point, you go back and you have to do it again. Now we go to one of the trickiest fights. This is one of the easiest fights to get blindsided by and take damage. And this is another boss fight that has to be done damageless. There's a bit of a pre-phase that we can do by popping the Tainted Missive and a Bachman patch. Tainted Missive is an item similar to the Crystal Seed. It's a damageless boss item for Fennel. The difference with the Crystal Seed is it has two uses instead of one. And the damage boost is 100%, so it's double damage instead of 50%. The drawback of it is that it does take 25% of your max health. And it always does this. Meaning that if you use it when you're at less than 25% of your max HP, you die. But yeah, props to Nyaki for just absolutely beasting that fight of Loopy or Magnolia. Damage's boss item for is the heavy arrows, which are gonna immensely improve the damage output of the arrows. So yeah, we spent a lot of time this run just improving the arrows as we go along. And it is gonna replace Adea's Pearl. There's two types of items. There's passive items and active items. Passive items you put on and you get a item from it, or you get an effect from it. Adea's Pearl is one, Pocket Incendiary is one, Heavy Arrows is another. And then there's active items. So the items you can select in the top left of the screen, and they have uses to them. Alright, so we've come close to the end. This is what we needed to be in the Royal Pinacotheca for, is to pick up the Sealed Wind. I said Sacred Wind earlier, I apologize. Sealed Wind to open up this windmill, or spin this windmill and open up this area, this pit of hibisco tea that we dip our leaf in, and now our leaf is green. This is the trigger for the true ending. So yeah, that's all we needed to do. As part of valid runs, we can now go and beat the game. The road to the final boss is open. Like, all the passageways to get there are open to you. We've activated the Sealed Wind to purify our leaf. So yeah, Dorothy a bit ahead. But there are still places in which things can go wrong. This race has not been decided yet. Also, don't worry about Kath. She just spilled ketchup on herself. Don't pay attention to the post. That's just her being sad that she spilled ketchup on herself. Okay, so here we get the next mid-boss. We had the knight earlier that we just bursted down with 2 sparse threads. This is the clone angel. 2 clones. 2 clones. Whichever one flies lower is the real one. Yeah, whichever one is lower is the real one. 2 sparse threads plus 2 melee hits and you're done. With boosted by the Tainted Missive, by the way. So a little bit of precise info. A little bit of precise info about the Clone Angel fight. Some runners like to stand a specific distance from the Clone Angel. Basically, the further away you are, the longer it's gonna take for the sparse thread to reach the Clone Angel. Which means the animation for you being stuck in it, the animation you do for the sparse thread. Yeah, there's basically less time between the animation ending and the sparse thread hitting, because once you hit the sparse thread, or once you deal your first hit to the Clone Angel, there's basically an internal timer that starts. Which once that internal timer's done, that's when the Clone Angel will teleport away. So it's like you need to hit the second sparse thread and the 2 melee hits before that internal timer's up. Now here's the final boss, the accursed Queen of Karst. Dorothy did a strat of using the Bachman patch on the Queen on phase 2. This is phase 3. This is the only. You only get this phase if you've triggered the true ending. Otherwise, the boss fight ends in phase 2 and you get the bad ending. And yeah, that's time for Dorothy. And look at that. Less than 10 seconds between the runners. Like, I know they can't hear me, but I'm gonna congratulate them anyway on a job well done on this. This is just game 1. Yeah, but yeah, an excellent race. 9 seconds between the runners by the end. Multiple times at which one or the other runner was ahead. Well, yeah, that was game 1. Stick around, because we've got another one coming up. And potentially a third. This is a best of 3. This that's the match format for this tournament. It's best of 3s. And, you know... And everyone watching... Everyone watching here, we're rooting for Nyaki on this one, right? On this specific match, we want to see game 3. Let's be real here. Alright, so we're gonna be waiting here on the runners to get game 2 on the way. In the meantime, hope you enjoyed game 1. The runners were very fast. I was behind on a lot of things to explain them, but I tried to cover everything as best I could. I can at least calm down a little. I've explained the actual run, so now we can just focus on how the runners are actually performing. Yeah, one thing I want to touch on before we get into game 2 is the final boss. There's essentially 2 ways you can go about it. You can choose to use the Bugman patch on phase 2 or phase 3. Yeah, it's all about how you want to deal the damage that is needed to beat the enemies. As long as you use everything that's fast, you'll generally. As long as you use everything that's fast, then it just comes down to whoever gets the execution right. Alright, we're just about ready to get back into this. Also, okay, so while this runs up, I want to talk about the version differences. Because there's a few. On screen, on the runner screens, on the title screen in the bottom right corner, it says what version you're playing on. The most recent patch is 1.07. There's also... yeah, for a long time, 1.05b... more experienced runners than me can correct me in chat if I'm getting things wrong, but 1.05b used to be the fastest for a long time, but in recent times, people have looked more into 1.07 and the advantages it may have over 1.05. One particular thing is that the arrow damage has been significantly buffed in 1.07. There's also 1.06, but I believe that is not faster in any capacity. But yeah, until recently, speedrunners as the fastest version would use 1.05b for any percent, and then 1.07 for AVIP, which is the speedrunner completionist category for this game. It's all vitality fragments, ivory bugs, and bosses. Vitality fragments are a collectible that increases your max health, and the ivory bugs are just a general collectible you can get. There's a character that wants them, you can give it to him, and then you get a special thing. And all bosses, There's exactly one optional boss in this game, which means all bosses can be a thing. But yeah, we're back here. We feel so much less powerful. We feel so weak because, yeah, we're starting a new game, so we don't have all the abilities yet. This game does, however, contain a New Game Plus. If you're watching this and are interested in playing this casually or even picking up the speedrun. Yeah, you can do a New Game Plus where you keep all your items and money. You start a new game, but you keep your items and money. So yeah, if you want to breeze through the early game, if you're trying to do whatever you want to do, if you want 100%, just play the game again. If you want to just breeze through the early game, just beat the game once normally, get a bunch of items, and then start a New Game Plus. Alright, back to Idea. Quick kill strat again. Different ways of doing it. Alright, both runners have abandoned the quick kill strat and are doing this fight normally. Honestly, it's kind of interesting to see the Idea do the exact same thing on both screens. That is actually really cool. I like that. So, Nyaki killing Idea a little bit faster. It's about a 8-second difference. Yeah, no quick kill, unfortunately. Hey, we could see it in game 3. If there's a game 3, there's another chance at getting quick kill again. So yeah, here's where the crystal seed is bought. I guess I'll reference the strats again I did during the explanation in game 1. So people can pay attention to them now when they're actually happening and not me explaining them up to 30 seconds later. One thing I want to point out on Dorothy's screen here is this cheeky little roll jump you can do. Or a double jump. You can damage boost as well if you're not playing on Insane. Actually on a hard you might also die. So Nyaki doing a save strat here, also did this in game 1, is opening this door and hitting a save point again. In case a reset is necessary against this fight, you're closer to it. That's it. Alright, so yeah, so Dorothy getting some bad luck. You don't want this Toho looking attack. Except for the fact that the bullets move really slow and everything. The big ball that Mocha fires, it curses you if you get hit by it or you stand in the cloud it leaves. If you stand in the cloud it leaves, you're cursed, which means you cannot use your items, which is kind of bad when you want to use items against Lubella here. Alright, this is still so tight and so close. This is great. And then the dives happen. So, us speedrunners, we know the game. We can fool around with it. We can fool around with it. As a result, we can change the boss names, and some people do like to change Lubella's name to something involving diving. Anyway, both runners moving on to the subterranean grave. Alright, don't worry about why this girl is here in this dungeon. Don't worry about it. And yeah, to come back to the bullet attack, the bullet ring that Mocha can do, it kind of comes down to your ability to deal with it. You can attack the pellets and and take them out, and that gives you a gap to either get inside or shoot through. Get inside to melee hit Mocha or go through or shoot arrows through it. Alright, Nyaki doing the risky roll jump off the chest again. very confident in it, which is good. Dorothy opting not to and just swim. But yeah, it is very much worth it, because one thing I haven't mentioned yet during game 1 is how slow underwater movement is. Rolling is so immensely essential in underwater. Also, shoutouts to these bats that come in flying at a random height from the screen opposite from the screen. They come in from the side opposite the way you entered the room, and they spawn at a random height. They will be the bane of your existence if you're playing insane. Yeah, because it's random, the height is random, you really just gotta be ready for when they spawn. Potentially in your face. Alright, so as we're making our way up to Frida, I want to mention that this is the 4th game in the Momodora series. We call it Momo 4, mainly to just distinguish that it's the 4th game. It's nice and snappy to say. The speedrun.com page for this is also speedrun.com/Momo4. But another reason is that that's what we used to. The first Momodora game is just called Momodora, and then second and third are literally called Momodora 2 and Momodora 3. On top of that, there is Momodora 5 is currently in development. It's called Momodora Moonlight Farewell, and it is said that it's going to be the final game in this series. Also from the developers is there a game called Minoria, which has been referenced in chat earlier. I still need to give it a go. You know, I'm a games collector, so I have like literally 1,000 games to which the sentence "I really should play it sometime soon" applies. Hey, that's me. Don't let that stop you from trying Minoria. Right, runners making their way through, still being very, very close. And yeah, as D&D says, Momo's the protag of Momo 2. Momodora 3 lets you choose to either play as Momo or Dora. And yeah, I guess this is technically a prequel, because Momo and Dora are descendants from Kauho, who you play as in this game. Yeah, I personally have not played Momo 2 or 1, but I have played 3. 3 was the first one I played, and then I played this one afterwards. Alright, so once again, rolling on through. Making our way to Lubella. Okay, so I want to explain the strat here with Lubella a bit more, because there's a cheeky little thing we do. Is one thing that save bells do, aside from saving your game, is they heal you and restore the amount of uses on all your items. So what we do here is we kind of do a little bit of an exploit. Is we activate the crystal seed. At the save point, then hit the bell to replenish the one use of it. So we get like half of the duration of the crystal seed at the start of the fight, and then have another use to activate it again during the later part. And yeah, Momo 3, most of the Momo games before this one are very short. I think if you count up the world records for Momo 1, 2, and 3, I think that's shorter than the world record for this. It might maybe be a little longer, but this is roughly as long as the first 3 games combined. Also, yeah, no no particular change in the lead yet. Nyaki's a little bit ahead, Dorothy right behind. So any big swing, any misstep can mean a big swing in this race. Also, yeah, cool thing here is to see the differences of runners that opt to be a cat during this part and runners that opt to stay human. So yeah, there are some considerations to make when you choose to be a cat. Particularly the fact that there's a transformation time. And to point out one more difference that 1.07 did, one disadvantage of 1.07 is there's certain cutscenes. Certain cutscenes that play. Such as one coming up right now where you're forcibly transformed back into a human. In 1.05b, the previous fastest version, before 1.07 was made out to be faster due to strapped optimizations and developments. In 1.05b, that doesn't happen. You stay as a cat and a silhouette, a sort of like ghostly manifestation of Kaho appears behind the cat. Oh, it's 1.06 where the force transformations came in. And yeah, therefore 1.07 also has them. The only time in this version it doesn't happen is during when you talk to the witch that gives you the monastery key. I neglected to mention her during the end, so I'll point her out when we get to her. But yeah, that's the only place in this game where there may be some places that don't show up in any percent, but for the any percent run, that's the only place where it goes where you can stay as a cat in a cutscene. Also, yeah, runners just went to the right, dipped into a room, and then came back. That's once again having been present in the room that contains the save bell you warp to. And yeah, speaking of warping, yeah, that's like before. That's what we're doing now. Going back to the Grove. Reset Grove, as some like to call it, because it's your typical first level in the game. That's the biggest reset point. Especially for runners that are trying to get runs going with Quick Kill. Because it's still a tricky... Some people may be very consistent with it, but it's forever and ever a tricky trick. For lack of better phrasing. Alright, so you don't need to be super fast to make this platform cycle, but yeah. Yeah, again, transforming back into a human on occasion because cats can't climb ladders. I'm sure there's videos online to prove otherwise, but in this game, Cat Kaho cannot climb ladders, which makes sense. She was cursed by Lubella into this form. And then, by pure chance, happened to stumble upon an item. That lets her change back and switch forms. It's honestly kind of impressive how much mastery over this cat form she does have right away. Like I'm not convinced that just because cats are natively quadrupedal, that doesn't mean that if you have the ability to turn into a cat, you're immediately gonna know how to run on four legs, how to run and move. Also, little thing that I didn't point out earlier about the Arsonist is that Arsonist starts with partial health. Yeah, the reason for this in-universe is you basically drop in on Cath fighting the Arsonist here, and Cath does actually fight. Alright, so decent finish from Nyaki, not super close to the door, but close to Cath. So yeah, not much time spent running. Dorothy in a bit of a better position here. But Cath is also a little bit further away than she was for Nyaki. Okay, more roll jump cancels here. jumping on top of the fragment, because the cat is too short. The fragments do float high enough in the air that if you run into them as cat form, you run underneath them. Alright, so yeah, warping back to the monastery. The monastery warp is a very important warp. It's such a nicely central place that we travel to, going to different ways. Also, yeah, on the Nyaki screen, here's the witch. Where you can still be a cat in the cutscene. Because, yeah, she has a bunch of cats. She's this mysterious evil witch. Or, like, gives off the vibes that she's evil. Because, yeah, she closes her eyes, then opens them again, and they're, like, bright red. Like the typical cartoon / animation evil red eyes. But yeah, I reckon she isn't actually evil, because she gives us the monastery key to get in here. And, yeah, you get to enjoy watching Fennel get absolutely destroyed. If you played this game before, Fennel is a particularly difficult boss fight if you're not doing this, this consistent strat. So, I reckon this might be catharsis for a few people. Shoutouts to low percent, which is a category in this game. It forbids use of all items that you can physically select. Basically, you're not allowed to pick up any items during the game. But any ability that you would be able to use from the start of the game, you're allowed to use. Obviously, you also are allowed to use the cat sphere because it's absolutely needed to get through the game. Which means that Konami, the Konami fairy, you are allowed to use in low percent. But yeah, shoutouts to low. Yeah, as I was saying, shoutouts to low percent for doing that fight without all the items. Also, this game. Also, I do want to take a moment. The runners are doing an excellent job of making this game look like a piece of cake, but it's really not. I remember on my first playthrough, I died many, many times. So, if you try the game yourself after seeing this and you take a bunch of and you end up dying a lot, don't worry about it. It's your first time through. You're dying about the amount you're supposed to when you first played this game, and yeah. However, there are items you can pick up that we don't, because we're speedrunning, that are helpful for casual playthroughs, such as the bellflower. There's many different bellflowers, and each time you pick one up, you get more uses of the bellflower. We do pass by a few bellflower spawns. Or bellflower spots, rather. Low percent. It's not... You don't kill... Oh, that's unfortunate. Death on Dorothy's side. Ow. I mentioned before that this was a painful place to die, because yeah, this entire section needs to be done in one go. Alright, Nyaki in a really good spot right now. So yeah, highlight this strategy again. Tainted Missive. Bachman Patch. Now, there is technically an alternative strategy you can do here. You can do here, which is between the two fights of Lupiar and Magnolia, you can actually pop the Tainted Missive. Even though it does the damage to you, it does not disqualify you from the damage to the boss item, as it's only disabled. You're only disqualified from the damage to this item if you take damage while a boss health bar is on screen. So if you do it in between the two phases where there's no health bar on screen, you don't get disqualified from the item. It's essentially if you want to focus on having the Tainted Missive boost during the Magnolia portion of the fight. And yeah, Each of these categories, like, with the exception of easy, probably, is that it's still... I wouldn't necessarily say a difficult run, in the sense of everything is doable. Also, this is something I want to point out, because I didn't earlier. Use of the Bachman patch here, before warping, is the hidden off-screen switch that opens up the ladder. There's a pretty considerable loop around to get to the switch. But yeah, you can hit it. You can hit it off-screen with the Bachman patch, and... So yeah, a non-combat use of the Bachman patch is nice. So yeah, have the Sealed Wind hit the enemy, so the enemy doesn't hit you while you're trying to summon the Sealed Wind. Okay. Race ain't over yet, though. Nyaki's definitely got an advantage, and it's Nyaki's round to lose at this point. But, yeah. There are definitely points. Particularly the Queen. Queen is definitely... If you do the strat wrong, you either are significantly slower, or you might straight up die. One particular danger is taking a hit. Because the Queen hits can easily put you under 25% HP. Which means that the second tainted missive usage would kill you. Alright, here's Kath again. This time she spilled wine on herself. Red wine. She needs to do something about that, man. She just keeps spilling ketchup and wine on herself. It just keeps happening. Ooh, that's a hit. So yeah, this fight's gonna be delayed by a little bit, but yeah. Unfortunately, not too bad of a backup. Just immediately got the kill on the second cycle. But yeah, if you're having trouble telling which clone angel is the real one, because it's you know, it might be hard for you to tell which one's flying lower, which makes sense because that's not intended. It is consistent, but it was not actually intended by the developers for the real one to always be flying lower than the fake one, or fake ones, because in subsequent cycles, the clone angel will spawn more fake copies of herself. But yeah, the intended tell for you to know which is the real one is the real one's attack has a red circle emitting from it, whereas the fake attacking has a white circle. Meanwhile, Nyaki's on the boss. So 3 melee hits, dodge the attack, another 3 melee hits, and supercharge. This was the additional charge level that I mentioned on the press fragment you get after Fennel. Yeah, by charging the... you can continue to charge the arrow after the initial full charge, and then charge it a level further, and then, yeah, a rapid flurry of arrows just fires forward, and it's 1.07 buff plus... Yeah, 1.07 buff plus heavy arrows is just such massive damage on it. And yeah, that's time 25-26. Really, really good time. And yeah, here we see Dorothy wrapping up. And yeah, we got what we all wanted. We're gonna see a game 3. And there we go, 26:13. Really solid times from both of these runners. Very, very high level play that we're seeing here in a race setting. Yeah. Okay. Alright, hope everybody's comfy. Nice and comfy. If not, go make sure that you are, because this is gonna be a game 3. This is gonna be a game 3 of all time. It's been such a solid match so far already. There's only one way this can get any better, is by having an even more amazing game 3. Alright, let's see game 3. We're about to start. Alright, well, I suppose I will highlight something about the controls. So there's essentially 2 controls. There's keyboard obviously, but there's 2 controllers, control schemes. The only difference between them is the roll and jump buttons are swapped. The normal controller style has the ranged bow attack on the right bumper or R1, depending on which controller you use, and then the right face button, so B on an Xbox controller, circle on a PlayStation controller. But yeah, the right hand face button is jump, and then on alternate those are switched around. It differs per runner which they use. I personally go with alternate, so I have the jump and roll buttons right next to each other. Also, when I was saying jump, I meant roll. Roll and range are switched. So normally roll is on the right-hand face button, and range is on right bumper. Oh no, it's the other way around. Yeah, ranged is on the right-hand face button, and rolling is on right bumper or R1. On the on normal, and then on alternate. Then on alternate, it's yeah, right-hand face button is roll, and right bumper is ranged. So yeah, this is a massive reset point, especially for Insane, because as you can see, the players are taking damage. The players are taking damage. It's fine to do because, you know, we're playing on normal. Also, those clouds, yeah, those clouds being emitted, that's not for show, not to, or to look pretty. If you stand on them long enough, you will actually get poisoned, as we see on Nyaki here. Alright, so this is a trickier platform cycle to make. Of course, the runners make it easy, because they've been amazing today. Yeah. That's what the other hidden one is. 80 is the money you want. That's how much the crystal seed costs, and yeah. Nyaki being very careful here to not die, because look at that health bar. Alright, well, the runners made it to the day. Is anyone gonna risk it for the biscuit and go for a quick kill to get an edge over the opponent? Both do seem to be attempting it. Alright, Dorothy tried and unfortunately didn't get it. Nyaki abandoned the strat and went for the regular fight. So regular fight here. Little bit lower health. These health bars are draining at